Hail, hail. Good evening, folks, and welcome along to the Endless Celts Podcast. My name's Anthony. Delighted to be joined by two of the show regulars tonight. First of all, the captain of the ship, Mr. Stephen Tomlinson, looking like he's just in for training. How you doing, mate?
Funny you say that. I'm just in from training. I had a personal training session tonight, and I'm fucking exhausted. I can barely lift my arms, but it was worth it. I'm feeling well. And before we move on, I just want to come to the Super Six, get that out of the way. New leaderboard, and a new leader. Anthony Dunn has climbed to the top of the tree. There's going to be an inquest, trust me, during this podcast on how he's done it. Kieran's coming in second, Kevin third, Mark fourth, Jamie fifth, Niall Thomas sixth, Jamie McElduff seventh, Alistair Jack eighth, James Bowie ninth, and William Dobbin, our very own, making up the top 10. So that's the updated Super Six leaderboard. Get involved with it. Remember to get your scores in nice and early for next week, and we can continue this debate who's going to be top of the tree. But yeah, as I said, they're just back from training, knackered, but I'm looking forward to a great show.
Brilliant. Listen, I'm as shocked as the rest of you when you told me that just before we went on air. I was top. I'm like, it's the old saying about, like, you know, when Hearts get to the top of the league at the start of the season or something, it's like an elephant on the top of a tree. No idea how it happened, but you know it won't last long. I'm just back from his holidays as well, looking refreshed, and of course well jet lagged at the same point. Roscoe's back. How you doing, son?
I'm very good, mate. I had a fantastic holiday in Florida. Good to be back on, talking some Celtic. I've missed it. But obviously I had a really good time, as I've said, in Florida. And I came back on Saturday, and I'm still feeling the effects of jet lag. I started back work today, and it was basically a write-off.
Aye, there's the first day back's just an absolute killer, mate, isn't it?
Aye, totally. And by the way, see that as regards to Super Six there's a round on Wednesday night this week for the Carabao Cup. So obviously you'll need to get your picks in before Wednesday night. I would say the kickoffs are probably 7:45. So just so we all can.
Get them in.
Get it in sharp, mate, absolutely. And also, you remember on the group chat as well that you had, I think for one of the matches, you'd been at the big supporters club in Florida, and I hear that went down well as well. You might have been spreading the Endless Celts word whilst you were over there.
I was doing a wee bit of networking, let's say. I got a few subscribers in the pub, the Lucky Leprechaun, which is on. I actually had a card, but I've not got it on me. I've left it in my wallet. But it's on International Drive in Orlando, and it's basically the Orlando Celtic Supporters Club. Anybody that's been to, cheers Alistair, anybody that's been to Orlando will probably be, or any Celtic supporter that's been to Orlando will be familiar with it. Really welcoming, as obviously you walk in there with a Celtic top, you're going to get that. But welcoming pub, great atmosphere, and brilliant for the game. I went and watched the Dundee game, and it was fantastic. I never managed to get to watch the Feyenoord game because I was getting thrown about on a roller coaster in Universal. But the Dundee game was great, and their hospitality was brilliant. And if you're going to Orlando, definitely go along to that pub for a game because it's well worth it.
I'll definitely need to note that for whenever if we ever get the chance to go over. And just one last thing before we get started. Obviously, Alistair's brought it up. For the rest of the viewers that aren't aware, I mean, I know it's a shock to look at because he doesn't look a day over 21. But at the weekend, Roscoe hit the big 4-0. And you'll need to tell us, son, does life well and truly begin?
Well, I've been jet lagged for the most part of it, so I think once I get back on an even keel, I've certainly got plans. I never really done much on my birthday because I flew back on my birthday, but I've got plans in the offing, going out for a meal with the family and that, and then my huge network of friends. I'm sure we'll all go out for a day out in Glasgow, maybe even book the Top Golf or something like that.
I'll be there, no problem.
Well, you weren't invited, but I go for it. Nah, we'll get something sorted. I don't know. I've not got a date nailed down yet, but it'll definitely be doing something.
Oh, absolutely, man. Well, just let us know when that is. We'll dare say a wee day out in Glasgow sounds just the ticket. And of course, we've got the Endless Celts Christmas party all booked up as well. Can't wait, man. The festive calendars fair filling up. Can't wait. It's all good. But anyway, Stephen, we'll discuss all things. And sorry, just before we do, welcome along to everyone in the comments as well. Just kind of get on touch. Just keep kind of passing the comments on, and that'll be part of the discussion tonight as well. That's just his natural look, Alistair. He's just a stud, you know.
That's the best descriptive you could possibly have for it, to be honest with you.
Super. But Stephen, let's get stuck right into the football. Of course, away to one of our favourite haunting grounds, of course, in the Tony Macaroni Stadium, whilst we were playing at Livingston. Saturday kickoff. I mean, I had to do a double take. Celtic kicking off before Rangers. I mean, wonders really do never cease. But any potential banana skin, it was quickly alleviated. An early goal. And although we'll obviously touch on the red card incident in a while, even with 10 men, I thought we looked very comfortable.
I mean, I think with 10 men, we all know Rodgers has a game plan from his first time around here, that time at Ibrox when we went to 10 men. He played a similar formation. It was Edward that time coming from the left. Kyogo was drifting to the right, making space for Maiden to make a runs in behind. But I know we'll probably come on to the red card decision, Anthony, and the kind of after effects of that. But I mean, the Tony Macaroni Stadium, what a name, by the way, for a Scottish football stadium. It's baffling. But yeah, these games are hard. I know Rodgers, I think he alluded to the fact he was only manager maybe 2 or 3 times going to that place, and fair enough, he didn't get a victory. But Celtic dominated the game from start to finish. I thought the team is finally, don't want to look too far ahead of himself, but it's clicking into gear, playing the way he wants to play, controlled possession, getting into the final part of the final third. Maybe the decision making, possibly from a few players, needs to be better, but that'll come. I think Rodgers says that, and he was clear beforehand that it's about the result first. Performance is going to follow, and this is further on down the road in his evolution of tactics, what he wants to play. But on that kind of surface, I thought we sipped it around really well. We were passing it, we were controlled, and like you said, we get the penalty kick, probably settles the nerves really early on. By all accounts, Rio Tate, it was a poor penalty. I thought I think it was Shamel George, is it, in the Livy goal. I thought he should have had it, but it went under him. Sometimes he had a bit of luck, and we got that. And then from there on, after that, I thought we absolutely cruised the game. And Livingston tried to do their usual, be tough, be aggressive, and that's the way they play under Martindale. Although he likes to moan on about finance, he does have a well-drilled team. It's hard to break down, and they're all 6 foot plus, and they're monsters compared to our squad in terms of like strength and kind of bullying players and that. But I just thought it was how would you describe it? It was a perfect all-round performance. Bar the red card, obviously, which was probably the only down point. But yeah, the penalty kick settled it, Anthony, and we took control from there.
It certainly did, and obviously we'll discuss the red card incident in a bit more detail very soon. But Ross, I know obviously you were no long off the airplane at that point, son. You wouldn't have known if it was Pancake Tuesday or Sheffield Wednesday. But did you manage to catch any of the game, sort of even on the telly at all, or were you just still absolutely in another world?
No, well, by the time I got home, I got in the house about 10:30, and I just tried to obviously stay up to as late as I could so that I could try and get back onto air time. But I managed to watch the full game. I have to admit, I think I fell asleep for 5 minutes in the second half. But other than that, I seen the whole game. I was really, the eyes were rolling about the flare at one point. I was that tired. But I thought Celtic played. I agree with Stephen. I thought we controlled the game. It does look like we're starting to click into the sort of Rodgers way. It's still not full flow, but I think we're looking better and better as each game passes. And it's been pretty much for the Ibrox game. I think we've took massive confidence for that game. And I thought we controlled the game. I laughed at Martindale's post-match interview. He was saying that in that first half he felt it was a very even game and Livingston were in it. I don't agree with that at all. I think that Livingston played two or three long balls that troubled Celtic. It was one ball beat us, which was disappointing for me for the defence, the sort of central defence. But other than that, it wasn't like they were keeping the ball or passing through us. You don't expect Livingston to do that, but that's the way he was sort of implying that they were given as good as they got, and that wasn't the case for me. Celtic were in total control of the game. Obviously, they got the penalty, and that settled us down even more. Stephen touched on it was a poor penalty. I think it was so poor that the keeper actually dived beyond it. He dived too far to save it, and that's how he ended up no keeping it out. But Martindale's assessment of the first half certainly was way off for me.
Did you see Martindale's assessment of the time Tavernier scored a penalty kick or something at the Tony Macaroni? He was smiling all after.
Smiling, aye, I know. But I was, as much as I thought they controlled the game in the first half, like Stephen, when we went down to 10 men, you seen it, the camera goes straight to Brendan Rodgers. It's like he thrives on it. I've got a plan for this. And he's so calm. I can't remember, I think it was Cal McGregor he spoke to. You could tell him, gain his instructions. And I have to say, as much as you make a plan for it, you don't want to get a player sent off. But if there's ever a position in the park where it's an easy tactical change to keep your sort of outfield as similar to what you wanted, then you want to lose the goalkeeper because you just replace him with a goalkeeper. And he kept the numbers in the midfield. He kept his 4 and we went 2 up top. It didn't really affect us too much. We still had the players in the middle of the park that we wanted, and we still had enough up top to trouble them. And it showed in that second half. Thought we were outstanding and completely dominated the game. And the sucker punch for Livingston was losing the goal so early. Had it went on a bit longer, it might have been a bit more nervy, but Celtic took the game away from them and kept the ball off them on a really poor surface, as we all know. And it was a really accomplished professional performance in the end.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair assessment, mate. And you're absolutely bang on about the pitch. The pitch is actually getting worse about every time I'm down there. I managed to get a ticket for the game on Saturday. I've been quite lucky. I've been able to get to the last few down at Livingston, and it's every passing game. I think this pitch literally cannot get any worse. But they managed to come up trumps every time. But as I say, in terms of you made a good point there about the Jed, I think it was Jed that brought it up there about the clean sheet. I think that's one of the big things, Ross, as well. The fact that much has been said about, obviously, there's no other getting away about it. We do have a defensive crisis at the moment. Pretty much our full back line is out, with the exception of course, Lager Bielka and Liam Scales. And there's the boys for the Voice of Bus on. Good to see you guys. Hope good luck for the show tonight. We have to say, as much as we know that this potentially going forward won't be the first choice centre half pairing, it's also 4 clean sheets in a row. I know obviously Lager Bielka didn't start last week against Dundee, but he's came on, and that's 4 games in a row now where this partnership, which is meant to be a big weakness, has kept it out, the strike opposition out yet again.
You can't knock them, certainly. Lager Bielka's come in. He's young, 23-year-old, and he's coming in, and he's probably expecting, right, okay, if I'm going to go into the team here, I'm expecting to be playing alongside somebody with experience, a Carter Vickers, even to an extent, a Welsh has played a lot more games than, like, say, Scales or that, but he's been pitted in there against a guy almost as inexperienced as him in terms of playing games for Celtic. But the two of them have really held their own well. I touched on earlier in that first half, there was a couple of long straight balls that beat us, and it was disappointing. I mean, that you look at it and it comes down to because it's these two guys. They balls might even have beat Carter Vickers. We don't know that, but Lager Bielka, I think he has had a couple of hairy moments on the ball, but then other times he looks really good on the ball. I don't want to knock the guy. He, as I've said, he's had a few hairy moments, but for the most part, he's been very good coming in, playing alongside somebody as inexperienced. And Scales, Stephen said it in the last podcast, he's making us eat our words. I thought he was gone for Celtic. And don't get me wrong, I think when your Navrocki and Carter Vickers and stuff are back, I think he does fall down the pecking order, but he's absolutely not doing his chances any harm right now. he's playing really well, playing with confidence, and he's been a lot more physical than I had him down for, to be perfectly honest with you. And they've done great, they really have, and they're really, certainly domestically, they're helping steer us through this sort of choppy waters now, if you like. But we're coming out on top, we're getting results. I never seen the Feyenoord game, so I can't comment too much on how they fared in that. But certainly the games I've seen domestically, they've done pretty well. And to go to Ibrox and defend the way they did up against it in the second half, you can only tip your cap to them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say probably Lager Bielka, his inexperience showed a wee bit against Feyenoord, especially in the second half. But I would say that Scales had very much a similar game as to what he had at Ibrox, to be honest, Ross. I think that's what's really impressing a lot of people now. It seems to be the bigger the occasion, the better he plays at the moment. And obviously, Stephen, we know what our previous record had been down at Livingston. It's always a place where historically, up until pretty recently, we did struggle. So we knew the pressure was on. And especially with the fact that we were kicking off first, there was an opportunity there to go and ask questions of Rangers to see if they could respond. So the pressure was on these guys. But I felt Liam Scales especially didn't really put a foot wrong on Saturday. And then one of the guys that was speaking to after the game made a good point about the fact that he seems to bring a bit of balance in the team at the moment, being that left-sided sort of centre-half. As much as things, as Ross alluded to, still in a bit of choppy waters at the minute, just with the amount of players we have out injured. But having that little balance can help calm the waters a little bit.
I think we all thought that left side of centre half would be Kobayashi. Remember when Postecoglou brought him in, he was left-footed. Apparently we're after him for like a year or so before we could get him off the club he was at it in Japan at the time. But I think for me, Liam Scales is in the kind of fuck it mode. He's nothing to lose. He's there. He's there only for injuries and problems at centre back. So I think for me, as an Irish boy, I mean, it's all cliche and stuff. I do get that, but he's in there at the minute thinking, I'm really at square one. The only place I can go is up. And if he keeps performing the way he's going, I said it in the last podcast, even with Vickers and Naraki and whoever comes back, Nat Phillips, you can't really drop him, because I think for me, he's been really good. He's been probably the best centre half I've had. Larga Bielka, I think Patrick McLaughlin said there, he looks awkward, kind of moves different and that type of thing. I think for me, Larga Bielka, he looks like a very inexperienced centre half. He just looks like he's caught in headlights all the time. And then Scales beside him, he's the most experienced guy, even though Scales is way down the pecking order. And don't get me wrong, the two of them together played well. I think Scales has been the better of the two. That's no slight in Larga Bielka. I think there's a lot to get adjusted to coming over here. He played for a smallish team, Elfsborg in Sweden. I think their stadium holds about 5,000 people. I know they're the Swedish champions and stuff, but that was kind of a one-off. But Liam Scales, for me, he's the epitome of someone who wants to take that chance and grab it with both hands and show what he's made of. I think he reads the game very well. He's good passing. He gets up and he challenges for the physical aspect of the game, which we actually lack in the team. I think throughout the team, we're very kind of not passive, but there's no really gap, maybe apart from Johnson, who would get stuck in and about it, win the headers and things like that. And Scales brings that. And I think for me, Anthony, the whole back four in general deserves a lot of credit. It's been up and down all season. Alistair Johnson's only come back in. Greg Taylor's had a dip in form, albeit in the last couple of domestic games he seems back to his best. European game, I think he was shite, to be honest. But yeah, I think for me, Liam Scales has taken this opportunity. And I don't know if it's going to go do for him in the long run, but he might attract a better club than Aberdeen to get him next if we let him go. Maybe a championship club down in England or something like that. But while he's in the squad, he's doing what he needs to do. He's defending first and foremost. He's doing the basics right, and that's all we can ask for at the minute, because, let's be fair, with fuck all else to call upon. So we need him. We need him to perform well, Anthony, and Larga Bielka beside him.
Yeah, that's it. We're not exactly spoiled for choice at the minute. The treatment tables are pretty much full in the medical side of things at the moment, Stephen. But I'm going to, obviously, we'll stay sort of on the defensive side of things, because, of course, there was one big flashpoint in the first half, to which my dad turned round. We thought we'd opened the scoring, looking very comfortable. And then, like you say, it was one ball over the top that caused a bit of a panic, shall we say. And we ended up with Joe Hart being reduced to 10 men. Joe Hart rushed out to try and get ahead. I think it was Nubley, but he got in there. Nubley got there before him, and it was one of the classics. Whoever was getting there first, the other person was going to be punished for it. And unfortunately for us, it was Joe who came off worst in that one. First red card of his career, I believe so. So we're obviously staying on praising the defence, etc., Stephen, but I know Joe is one of your favourite topics. What was going through your mind at that point? Because as my dad said at that point, something always happens down here at Livingston away, when you can never just have a nice, comfortable afternoon. There's always some kind of flashpoint.
Yeah, I don't know why, but for some reason, when you said Joe, my head went to that Still Game episode with the buggy. Was it Joe and his buggy? I don't know.
One of the best episodes ever.
I don't know why my head went there, but I think me and my granddad looked at each other, man, fuck's sake. So I mean, and people are saying it's his first red card, right? But again, cynical side of me, is he slowing down? I don't know. He could have made it there maybe when he was a couple of years younger. That's up for debate. I know Rodgers said that it bounced up awkwardly on the 4G surface, which it did, to be fair. Usually the grass would carry that along and it would just kind of skid out for a goal kicker into his arms, and it bounced up. And I think it was Sangari, who, by the way, Sangari had a really good game for Livingston. He really impressed me in the midfield, and he got took off quite surprisingly, but I thought he played well when he was on the pitch. Him and Nubley, to be fair. But yeah, look, 3 red cards in 2 games isn't a good look. And I know we won the domestic game, that's fair enough. And I think Ross made a brilliant point. Goalkeeping wise, you can solve that issue. You can still keep the core of your team in a shape. And I think Maeda and Kyogo worked really well. It's like a duo up top. When Maeda was coming through, Kyogo was going out to the right. Maeda was moving to the left and Kyogo was through the middle. So it was kind of working in that instance. But it was a red card all day. I don't know why people are complaining about it, to be honest. And look, when you have referees like you do in Scotland, they cannot wait to give Celtic players a red card. It's like Christmas for them. They'll be getting wee cards and thank you letters from certain people in the post in the coming days doing it. But yeah, it's a bit of a worry for me having Scott Bain maybe as our number 1 for the next 2 domestic games. That's given me the fear a bit. But look, you know my view on Joe Hart. I think we should have upgraded him on the summer. I feel like a broken down record, to be fair. But yeah, he shouldn't be our number 1. He just shouldn't be our number 1. And I think it's clear for everyone to see. Yes, he's made some excellent saves. He saved the penalty in Europe and things like that. But see, sometimes his decision making, coming for cross balls, like having the ball at his feet, he gives me the absolute fear every time he does it. And unfortunately now it's for a goalkeeper to be able to play that way, sweeper keeper role and all that type of stuff. And Big Joe doesn't have it, boys, and Big Joe shouldn't be our number 1.
That's what I love about you, Stephen. You always sit on the fence, never really give too much away. I must admit, I was in terms of the. I mean, it happens that quick in real time. My first initial reaction was, John Beaton couldn't get his hand in his pocket quick enough, which I suppose is still a fair point, Ross. But I have to say, when you watch it back, it's not one of those ones where there's no argument really, is it? It's one of the ones, whoever comes off worst is going to be getting punished for it, and unfortunately for us it was Joe.
Aye, it's like I said, I think I said it in the group chat, it's a 50-50. I heard, I think it was Neil Lennon was saying that Hart was reckless and like he would have got sent off anyway, even if well, for me, I don't agree with that analysis. I don't think it was. No, reckless.
I'm saying Neil Lennon. But
aye.
Yeah.
I don't think it was reckless. I think, like you have said there, it was a 50-50 ball. It was there to be won. It was about half a second too late in getting there. There wasn't any malice in it. It was a full-blooded challenge by both players. In actual fact, you would probably say that the Livingston player's boot was more dangerous than Joe Hart, because Joe Hart, his foot's up as well, but his studs aren't up. The Livingston player's studs are up, but he gets there. He gets the touch on the ball, which negates that. And Joe Hart, just his momentum takes him through the Livingston player, and it's more a coming together. But letter of the law, it is a red card.
Yeah,
it is a red card. Letter of the law. Mm-hmm. Stephen is getting wired into Joe Hart again there, and he's caveating it and saying, I know he made the save with the penalty save and all that. He made that an absolutely brilliant save in the game on Saturday at 0-0.
He did.
down
He did,
his
yes, he did,
left-hand side it was. He's a brilliant shot stopper. He makes some really, really good saves for Celtic still. I don't think he's as bad as people make out, but I also don't think that he's the best that Celtic can have in that position. Absolutely not. But it's who we've got now. And I think for the most part, he has done... well, let's put it like this. I think he's done more good for Celtic than bad in his time, which is I'm quite happy with that. But also, I understand that we can do better. You touched on there, Anthony, that now we're obviously... Is it 1 or 2 games we'll have Bain in goal now?
I believe it's just the one.
I thought
Because
that.
I've been trying to Google it today. I know that sometimes I think people are saying it's more than one if it's for violent conduct, but I don't think that's necessarily what he's been sent off for. And definitely in all the print publications today, Ross, it was just saying he's going to miss the Motherwell game. So I'm taking that as it's a 1-game ban. So how are you feeling with Mr. Bain between the posts next Saturday for Fir Park? Probably a talking point for Friday night, but yeah.
Listen, I'm not as worried as some people will be. I think he had a wee hairy moment where he nearly cost a goal in the Livingston game. What I will say is, I think that Scott Bain is by far better than Joe Hart with the ball at his feet.
yeah.
He's not not by any stretch a better goalkeeper than Joe Hart. But for 1 game at Fir Park, I think I could trust Scott Bain. I think he's not an absolutely horrific goalkeeper. And Celtic, you should... Aye, there you go. He's not a horrific goalkeeper. He's not good enough to be Celtic's number 1. I think he's okay to come in. Is he better than Siegrist? Probably not, but Brendan Rodgers seems to prefer him to Siegrist. I don't know if Siegrist has made noises he wanting to get out the club or whatever, but Scott Bain wants to be here and he's quite happy with his role in the team. And for 1 game, listen, the COVID season, he was in and out of the team and he was playing a lot more games, but at the same time, people are slating him off the back of that season. The amount of shots he faced in that season for Celtic is far more than, like, say, Joe Hart will face, a Craig Gordon faced in his time, even an Arthur Boric. Celtic were awful that season, and he faced far more shots. He made saves, but he conceded a lot of goals, but so did the other 2 goalies. But before that, under Rodgers, he came in, and when he played under Rodgers the first time around, he done okay. He wasn't magnificent. He had a really good game at Ibrox, and he had a stint as the actual number 1 for a small period. I think he done okay then, but I think he's pigeonholed in the COVID season. But people forget the amount of shots he faced and how exposed he was at times. I think for 1 game at Fir Park, the way we want to play, I think he'll suit that. It's whether he's definitely not as good as Joe Hart at shot stopping. But I think for 1 game, I'm quite comfortable with him coming in. It doesn't worry me too much.
I think. Sorry, Stephen, on you go.
I think for me, sorry, Anthony, like, Scott Bain didn't come in. I think he played in the Mestalla, Valencia, in the Europa League, I think it was as well. And he played quite well under Rodgers' first time. But I think for me, like, it's an absolute joke that we're talking about Scott Bain potentially being between the sticks. I mean, this is what, 4 or 5 years since Rodgers' first spell. He's still in the club. He's only really there as a glorified number 3. Siegrist has found love in Australia. He's pining for him, wants to leave. That's fair enough. So we're really, evidently, with no third choice keeper because Siegrist is nowhere to be seen. In the European games, we had a young keeper on the bench. I think it was Morrison, I believe his name was, and it was Scott Bain and then Joe Hart. The goalkeeping department's shot to bits once Joe Hart's kind of injured or he's red carded, for example. And I just think there's so much things. They're not going over old ground, but kind of my last point on anyway. If anyone wants to jump in, that's fair enough. I just think it's utter neglectful, really fucking neglectful, and it pisses me off, quite frankly, that we're sitting talking about we're happy with Scott Bain coming in. That's my opinion. It really is. But yeah, there we go.
I'm not saying I'm happy. I'm saying I'm worried.
I'm saying the position that the club are in, not you in particular. I mean the position we as a club are in. We should have better choices than that.
I have to say, like one of the because I've had my bones to pick with Scott Bain in the past, but he did make a cracking save, and it kind of went under the radar because there wasn't as much going on, but it wasn't long after he came on the park, and it was one of the ones, I don't know if you remember it, but the ball just sat up nicely for the Livingston player, and it was outside the box. It was one of the dead awkward ones for a keeper, but it was a kind of pile driver kind of shot, and he did get down to it really well, and he held on to it as well, which was good because the penalty area was quite packed. So my life flashed before my eyes when the Livy player went to hit it, but got to give credit where credit's due. It was a good save, so we'll just have to. We shall wait and see how he gets on with his moment in the sun at Fir Park on Saturday. And just before we go on to the some of the other guys that really played well on Saturday, Ross, I want to just bring, it's classic. If there's a point to miss, the Scottish media will miss it. We know that. But I just want to can I get your thoughts on some of the ridiculous, for me anyway, overreaction to Brendan's team selection on Saturday. Now, of course, it ended up being a bit of a, as Joey Tribbiani would say, a moot point anyway, because obviously with the red card, Jamesy Forrest then ended up coming off, relatively early into the game. He hadn't done too much in the game until that point, but not in any kind of negative way. Just the ball most of the time was going down the left-hand side. Mm-hmm. But some of the reactions, not just from your Clyde One panel, but in the print media of the day as well, it's been nothing but scathing from them, as if to say that they're using this as evidence somehow that Brendan doesn't fancy Palma, or he doesn't fancy Yang. He feels like he can't trust him. I mean, I don't know about you. For me, it just felt like a classic case of it's a dodgy pitch. We know it's a dodgy pitch. It's a dangerous pitch. And James Forrest is someone that Brendan Rodgers knows has been and done there. He's played on that part before. He knows what to expect. And with a big squad, you got to use those tools accordingly. I just couldn't believe how much the likes of Palma and Yang are getting slated in the media on the back of what to me just looks like a rather normal team selection.
Aye, it's lazy punditry. It's trying to create a story where there's no story. Mm-hmm. I mean, our first European game of the season away in Rotterdam, Palma started, so that puts that one to bed instantly. And I actually said in the Right Good Tim's forum that we're on Saturday to somebody, I said they were saying can't believe James Forrest's been picked sort of thing. Why is he starting? He should never be starting. And I said exactly the same thing. I says, do you think that it's just because it's a dodgy pitch? It's a game where Brendan Rodgers obviously thinks that we can still go and get 3 points at Livingston with James Forrest in the team, who is okay. He's down the pecking order now. He's not the player he was. He's coming to nearer the end of his career, but he still has qualities, James Forrest, to hurt teams. He still has, let's say, moments of quality in a game that he can produce to hurt teams. He's not going to do it to the level and the consistency that he had probably previously under Rodgers. But I've absolutely no qualms with him coming into a game like Saturday, and I fully trusted that he would do the job. Okay, you've made the point that he did have to come off, and he didn't do a lot in the game, but you also said, and you were right in saying, that most of the ball went down the left-hand side. But it's just try to create a story where there is no story. Any negative story towards Celtic, let's do it. Brendan Rodgers hasn't sacked Yang and Palma. It just doesn't wash with me. It's pure and utter nonsense.
That's it. As I say, mate, if there's a point to miss, you can absolutely assure they'll miss it. And anti-Celtic stories is oxygen for the mainstream media. Stephen, what was your thoughts on it? Sorry, just before you do, just when you were saying about the Right Good Tim's forum there, Ross, I was chatting to a few of the guys at the Almondvale on Saturday. I actually met Kevin Gallagher, who for a long time, we just assumed he was winning on the Super Six. I caught him at the end of the game. And a shout out to Steve McTiernan as well. I was sitting next to him for a few pints as well. So we had a great day. And obviously the Boyle brothers as well. It was absolutely brilliant hospitality they put on as always. So big thanks to them. But yeah, and I heard some nice words about our show for some of the guys that I was chatting to as well. So it's always good to hear. But Stephen, what was your thoughts? I mean, I'll be honest, when I heard the team, I wasn't overly shocked. I mean, I think it is the same team that started in Feyenoord, just with the fact that Jamesy was starting over Palmer. I felt, for me personally, it was just a simple case of, like you say, Palmer and Yang aren't experienced on this kind of surface. Put somebody in there that we know can get the job done, and we'll have to fight another day.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people, fans and people like kind of misconstruing it for. I mean, Stephen Ray in the comments thinks this Rodgers making a point about the recruitment policy. He wasn't happy who he brought in and who he was left with. Other people are saying like Ross there is probably down to the pitch and these boys coming in from different shores, getting used to stadiums around Scotland. We all know most of them are absolutely below par, let's just say. But I think for me that James E. Forrest coming in, I think someone said it in the comments, can't remember your name, I do apologise, about experience. I think he's played a couple of games there and he's done really well in the past. And like Ross, I mean, look, I'm not Forrest's biggest fan anymore, right? I was previously when he was actually making a difference to the team and he was excellent. And to my eyes, he's a club legend. I mean, 100 goals, 100 assists. What a fantastic record over the years he's been in the squad and in the team. But again, look, it goes back to me, like, yeah, you can bring him in for experience and stuff like that. And I do see the argument, Anthony, of people saying, why not just throw Yang in or throw Palmer into these games to get them used to it instead of kind of drip feeding them into the team? Because eventually they're going to be first choices over Forrest, you would imagine, so paying the transfer fees and stuff like that. But look, I'm 50-50 on it. Yes, I can see it from the experience angle, but then on the other hand, we're going, what was the actual point in it, really? He was on the pitch for 28 to 30 minutes, done all right, couple of passes inside the pitch, nothing amazing, fair enough. But then again, you've got £6 million worth of talent on the bench who didn't even get a sniff of the game. So there's a wee bit of issue there for me. It's one of these ones. I'm actually going to sit in the fence on it because I never usually do, but I'll just go down the middle. I'll be kind of coy on it. Not too happy that he was playing, but again, I can see why Rodgers done it.
Wonder we'll never cease, Ross. Stephen sitting on the fence.
I know. But see, on that, like, people saying, I don't even think he was brought in for experience. I think he was brought in because we've got an injury list as long as your arm. I don't think Rodgers wants to get any more of the more prominent wingers injured. We've already lost Abada. We've got a lot of big European games on the horizon. Celtic should be able to go to Livingston with James Forrest in the team that probably, obviously out with injuries. He's the only one that's came into that team where you would probably say you wouldn't expect him to start. So for me, I don't think it was like Rodgers made wholesale changes and it was, why are you doing that? It was bizarre. He made one change, one unforced change, if you like, with an eye on European football and not want to lose any more players. And if there's ever a surface that you were more likely to lose a player than any other surface, it's Almond Vale or Tony Macaroni, whatever you want to call it. Spaghetti Head. I just think it was completely down to the fact that it was the surface, and he was thinking ahead to European games and possibly even like bigger, more tougher games in the league. I think it was actually a really good bit of management and a good decision, albeit that in the end he had to take him off due to the red card. But I think he would have played at least 60 minutes. And he would have done okay. I'm not saying he would have scored. I'm not saying he would have been the guy that like changed the game or whatever. But he would have done a job, and Celtic would have been fine regardless of a red card or Forrest being on the park or not.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair, mate. One other substitution that I wanted to mention because it felt like who put 50 pence in him sort of thing was because he was just exactly what we were needing. I felt just in the final third of the game. I'll just come straight back to you, Ross. Was Iwata? I think he came on for. Try to remember now. I think it might have been Hatate, but I might be wrong on that. But he just seemed to have a real lease of life about him. Won a couple of 50-50 balls, pushed the ball forward. He just seemed like the player that potentially we thought we were seeing at Kilmarnock. He kind of faded away at the end of last season. But I have to say, I was really impressed with him, and it's just one of the ones where I think, like you say, big squad, lot of games coming up. He could potentially feature more as well.
Aye, quite possibly. Listen, I like Iwata. I think he's a very good player. Right now, our best midfield three, I think everybody's in agreement, is McGregor, O'Reilly and Hatate. I think it's going to be difficult for him to get into that as, like, in terms of like the big games or whatever. That's going to be the midfield three he goes with. But again, like Forrest, you've sort of alluded to it there, Anthony. He might see more game time. I think he's came on in that game. He came on. I think he came on at Feyenoord again. I didn't see that game, but I think he maybe did come on in that game, or it might have been the Dundee game. I can't remember. But he's came on and he's done pretty well. I think he's got a point to prove, because it looked for all the world he was well out the picture earlier on in the season. But he's slowly, I don't know if it's been a fitness thing that we've maybe not known about, but he's slowly working his way back in. And listen, I think in terms of football's a squad game, and in terms of using the squad, I think we all know that Rodgers will probably use the squad more than what Ange did. And I think having a guy like Iwata, being able to bring him in, will be invaluable over the piece. Again, he's not going to be first choice. He'll have to go some to split that midfield three up. But over the piece, he'll be a really good player to have in the squad to get us through this season.
Yeah, I agree, and obviously we'll be touching on that midfield three just in the next topic. But Stephen, your own thoughts on Iwata's performance when he came on? As I say, the first real kind of incident I recall from was when he won a 50-50 ball and then won it again in the next challenge, and then it started an attack. It didn't come to anything, but it was just a case of there was a few glances getting made for the fan up to say, God, he's in the mood today. We might start seeing a little bit of that more often.
Well, I hope so. I mean, early signs in pre-season was Rodgers quite fancy him. He was playing right back, obviously, to cover the injuries to Ralston and Chelsea at the time. Then he fell away. He wasn't included domestically, even on the bench in some games. Then in Europe, he was thrust in because of the red cards. I think Tomoki Iwata, I think Pam said it in the comments, he was player of the year in Japan. There's something there about him. Every manager he's worked under seems to have really enjoyed kind of coaching him and watching him progress. Postecoglou, like this versatility, playing right back, centre half, and in the six. And I think to me, he adds a different dimension. Stephen ran the comment said Hatate offers zero defensively and gives the ball away at European level. Iwata to me could maybe be that stopgap. If Hatate is coming off, he can come in, stem the flow, kind of be that defensive-minded player along with Conor McGregor. Ross, me and you spoke about this many times, but I think going into the Ibrox game, we thought he would be the two with McGregor in there, but it didn't transpire as that. But I think he's athletic. I think he's quite stocky. He's built in a way. He's obviously small in stature, but he gets in and about it. He's not afraid to put a foot in. He gave the ball away a few times, but we'll put that down to the pitch in this instance. But yeah, I want to see more of him. I think the whole fan base wants to see more of him. And if you can get the best out of him, just get him into whatever position he suits. If it's in the midfield, let him fight it out with Hatate, McGregor and O'Reilly. I'm sure he has confidence in his own ability that he can do it. Otherwise, he would have been at a club like Celtic. And yeah, I'm excited to see more of him. And not only that, I think he's going to be playing in the next European game at centre half as well. I think Patrick McLaughlin was right. Maybe it's game time in his legs for that kind of issue and make sure he's fresh for them games coming up. But yeah, as a whole, I want to see more of him. From the wee snippets I've seen, I think his best positions in the midfield, number 6 role. I know William thinks he's a number 8, but he's not a number 8. But that's an argument for another day. He's definitely a
He's
defensive.
going to argue about that on Friday.
He's definitely a defensive-minded midfielder, and for me, we need a lot of athletic and physical players, and he fits the mold, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's fair enough, mate. But yeah, just it was a topic, and obviously when I'd sent you it out, I was going to chat about it first, but obviously we know we've kind of, went off on little tangents here and there. But I'll just come straight back to you, Stephen, because although the whole team played well on Saturday, like you say, even players like Greg Taylor, who maybe didn't start the season in the best of form, looked really more like his usual self on Saturday, demanding the ball, getting up and supporting the attacking players as well. I thought he had a really good game. Alistair Johnson just coming back into the fore as well. It was great seeing some of these big hitters coming back, and Atati kind of ran out of steam a little bit, but again, I think we've got to put that into, he's still getting back up to speed after a lengthy period out. But I wanted to just give special mention to two players who've kind of been mainstays the full season and were absolutely on it again on Saturday. The first one, Matt O'Reilly, who just looks to be in the form of his life at the minute, and I felt he had a brilliant game, breaking up Livingston attacks, starting Celtic attacks, getting stuck in, and just really running the show. And the other one as well was Dyson Maeda, who just again he covered every blade of AstroTurf out there. He was just absolutely tremendous, and we were quite funny. He obviously classic Maeda. He misses two relatively easy chances and then scores a potential goal of the season. That's just what he does. But I personally felt I couldn't pick between the two of them for man of the match on Saturday, so I thought I'll just give them a half each. But I personally thought they two were in a good team performance. They were the two that stood out head and shoulders above everybody else.
I think Matt O'Reilly's turned into a box-to-box midfielder under Rodgers. The way he covers the ground, he can break up play. Obviously, he filled in that sixth position last season in Europe, and he done quite well when McGregor was injured, but he's a different animal this season. 3 goals already, albeit Maeda missed the chance, but it was in the back of the net anyway. In the end, Matt O'Reilly doing what every good midfielder does, make the late run into the box, and the one's picking it up, and he puts it away with ease. But yeah, I've seen whispers that the Danish national team, not the under-21s, are going to call him up for the next kind of set of friendlies or whatever international matches. That'll be a good fella in his cap, because I know he's talked about getting to that international level and playing full senior debuts and full senior matches. So again, he'll love to do that with Celtic as well. I think for me, O'Reilly's, from when Rodgers first came in, he was talking about his different style of management. Maybe O'Reilly needed that kind of man manager to be like, look, do this better if you improve in this, arm around the shoulder if he's having a bad day or bad game or a bad training session. All that type of stuff can add up. And I just think what we're seeing of him, the elegance that he can glide across the pitch, he's fizzing the ball. I just love the favourite part about him, Anthony, at the minute, is the fact he's tackling people. He's getting stuck in. He's winning headers in the midfield against players who wouldn't necessarily match him up against, but he's doing it anyway for the good of the team. I think he looks a yard quicker than he done last season. He looks really lean. He looks really athletic, getting up and down the pitch. And we talked about that as well. Maybe more athletic players in the team, but I definitely think O'Reilly's took that and he's ran with it, so to speak. But yeah, I just think he's excellent. I think everything he's doing at the moment is coming off. And do you know what? Fair play to him. After the struggles he had last season, albeit he still was our highest assist maker, and he didn't score as much, obviously, but I think he's already equaled his tally this season, which is fantastic. But you can see he's playing with a smile on his face. And the teammates are loving his success on the pitch as well. And it only bodes well for Celtic. And people are going to talk about transfer fees, what he could get for us. I'm not thinking about that. I'm enjoying him while he's playing for us. And I think we all should. I think he's an absolutely fantastic player. And I've spoke about the League One level before. That was only in relation to Robbie Edwards at centre-back. No chance. But this guy from MK Dons, who basically every other big team in England at the time were following because he was producing stats that were unbelievable. He's been an excellent bit of business for us, and I think he's just going to take it to a new level this season and beyond. In terms of Maeda, look, the Duracell bunny, the guy who can never stop running. I think Rodgers summed it up. When you're not really down to 10 men when Maeda's on the pitch. He does the work of 3 or 4 people in terms of running and off the ball work, and he never give the centre half of Livingston a chance. I think Kyogo, special mention to Kyogo, them two up top work really well together, pressing all the time. When you have a man down, that's difficult. They were doing the jobs of literally two people in that situation. And you're right, he misses the easy chances. He misses the ones you're thinking, man, come on. I'm going to have to go on this podcast to give you grief and I don't want to do it. And then he whips out a left-footed beauty of a shot from the right-hand side in the top corner, keeper no chance. And he didn't even celebrate it. He didn't really want to celebrate it. He wanted to keep going and keep going for another goal. I think he's the epitome of what we need in that team. Just pressing, constant pressing. And look, kudos to the man, because a lot of people may have written him off or said he's going to be sold and he wouldn't suit Rodgers' system. But I tell you what, Brendan Rodgers has a soft spot for him, and he seems like a mainstay in the team. And I'm happy with that if Rodgers is happy with that.
There you go. Just feel that positivity just oozing through you, Stephen. It's a good feeling, isn't it? What about yourself, Ross? I know you've always been a fan of both of them, but I did have a sneaky feeling you'd be looking forward to talking about them tonight, because the two of them, I thought, were just in a league of their own on Saturday.
Aye, they were. Matt O'Reilly, I was going to say maybe he just edged it, but I really don't know. They were both immense. Matt O'Reilly is more elegant. Stephen touched on it. When he first came into Celtic, I thought for all the world he was a carbon copy of Tom Rogic. He was going to be his replacement. He was an out-and-out number 10. And in a matter of months, Rodgers has completely changed his game. It's for the better, by the way. And it's no slant on Ange or anything like that. But he is a box-to-box midfielder now. He's not playing the number 8, but he's playing almost every position in that midfield at different times. He's the one that gets stuck in and puts the foot in, wins the ball. You've seen that at Ibrox in abundance. He was the one that was being physical and getting in their faces, and it was no different on Saturday. But coupled with that, he also brings quality on the ball, and like Stephen said, he's he's added goals, and I think he's actually surpassed his goal tally already for last season.
It was 2 last season, wasn't it? It was 2.
It's 2 or 4, I can't remember, but I think he has surpassed it by 1 goal now. And people will say, well, that just shows you like that was a poor season for Matt O'Reilly last season if he's already surpassed his goal tally this early. But for me, Matt O'Reilly had a really good season last season. You touched on it, Stephen. He was still the top assist. He was still affecting games. He just wasn't getting the goals. He wasn't applying that finishing touch that we've seen in he came in the second half of that first season under Ange, and he came in and hit the ground running and he scored a few goals, but he just didn't have that sort of instinct in front of goal. But he's surpassed it, and he is playing better than last season now, and he's changed his game, or Rodgers has changed his game. But he's just so good, and he's probably, everybody's on about Hatate and stuff like that, and obviously Hatate he's coming back to fitness. I think it is purely a fitness thing once he gets games under his belt. But Matt O'Reilly, for me, is performing every bit as good as Hatate has at any point in his Celtic career. I think Matt O'Reilly is performing every bit as good as that right now. I think he's immense, and he's coming in. That late run is where he's getting his goals. I'm trying to think who it's reminiscent of. I don't know, but it is. Aye, you could say that. He's not as dynamic as Petrov, certainly.
No.
That sort of arriving late into the box and picking up the scraps or even the cutbacks, and he's just been clinical. And every single time he puts the ball in the net, it's never lashed. It's caressed in. It's placed. It's passed. He just oozes quality. And like Stephen, I'm not thinking about what amount of money we can get from him. I want us to keep a guy like that for as long as we possibly can. He's an outstanding footballer. And then you go on to Dyson Maeda. He's not as elegant, as I've said, as Matt O'Reilly, but you all know what I think of him. I've loved him like for pretty much the word go. His work rate is sensational. He's protected Greg Taylor so many times. He's the first name in the team sheet when we go to Ibrox for me, and I think that's the biggest testament you can, or the biggest compliment, you can pay him. His work rate, Rodgers said it, like Stephen, he does the work rate of 2 men, It's phenomenal, and he is frustrating at times. His first touch and all that isn't what you would want it to be. But like I say, that the chance he missed when O'Reilly obviously got the goal, people have said it was a bit of a sitter. Now, I don't agree it was a sitter. I think it sort of popped up and his run had taken him beyond the ball. It was a bit of timing of the run, and it wasn't I don't think it was as bad a miss as people think, but he still he looks awkward at times on the ball, but when he gets going full tilt running at a man, he's very hard to stop. And when he does, he comes up with moments like he did at the end of the game. You can tell he's got that class in him, but he just needs to bring it to the fore more. And I've heard a lot of folks saying if Dyson Maeda could do that, what he done at the end of the game all the time, he wouldn't be at Celtic. The reason he's at Celtic is because he is quite awkward for the most part. And I would have to agree with that. But in terms of what he brings to this team, I said it last season, and I'll say it again, he is invaluable to this Celtic team. He's invaluable to any Celtic team. His work rate, it's phenomenal. And once again, he was fabulous for Celtic, and he has been pretty much all season.
Yeah, can't really argue with any of that, mate. And I'm just going to come straight back at you just for the final point, because I know obviously we were, big cheerleaders for getting Brendan back in the door after, the announcement obviously that Ange was going to be leaving for pastures new. And, there's been, for one reason or another, bizarrely, a section of the fan base that didn't seem to be having him. I didn't miss the irony of the same folk that wanted him lynched 2 weeks ago at St Johnstone were, blowing him kisses at full time. But such is the fickle nature of the boys' brigade, as you know. But having said that, I just felt that the full day was Brendan's day. But from the team selection, which I think we spoke about, I think was spot on. His in-game management, especially going down to 10 men. His mannerisms at the end on the pitch, and helping that kind of getting the wee boy out of trouble, but just putting him back in the stand. And then his post-match comments as well, when he was pointed out that that's some, he's won, played 5 and drew 1, and the comments about Maeda, and he sarcastically says, "Aye, and that's us struggling." Just little comments like that. I just felt it was a day where he owned it all. Simon Jordan last week on TalkSport argued that he's not a top-class manager. Danny Murphy very quickly refuted that and claimed that he is. And Simon's reply to that was based on what? And Danny Murphy's absolutely brilliant, man. A really good body of work everywhere he goes, and I don't really think you can argue with that. But I know we're fans of that show. So whose camp are you in?
Danny Murphy's, of course. And that's not just looking at through green tinted glasses. I said it when he was first linked to come back to Celtic. We're getting an elite manager. We had an elite manager, Ange Postecoglou, and we had to replace him with an elite manager. We just had to, off the back of a treble. And they done that. You look at it, we were looking at Maresca and stuff like that, and people say, "Oh, he's doing quite good at Leicester." He's not an elite manager. He's not going to come in and off the back of Ange. It wouldn't have washed with me. Brendan Rodgers does, and Danny Murphy's bang on the money. His body of work, like he was at. Okay, he had the one blot. I think it was at Watford, but he brought a Swansea team up into the Premier League, kept them there. Then played a brand of football that the entire league was talking about. Such was the brand of football that Liverpool Football Club came in and took him for Swansea. He almost delivered a league title for Liverpool, but for a slip for the famous Steven Gerrard. And obviously the collapse at Palace. But he almost delivered a league title for the first time in, like, I don't know, I think it was maybe 25 years or something like that. So close. He then obviously goes a wee bit downhill in the latter stages of his Liverpool career. He comes to Celtic, he wins 7 trophies out of 7, and then he gets his move to Leicester. Leicester obviously won a league title, and they done really well. But there's nobody got to tell me that Leicester team that won the league title played a better brand of football than the Leicester under Brendan Rodgers when they won an FA Cup, when they got 2 fifth place finishes. But for just coming up that wee bit short, maybe just that levelly player down, they almost got top 4 2 seasons in a row. If that's not an elite manager taking Leicester City to that, Ranieri done it for 1 season, Brendan Rodgers done it for 2 seasons, won an FA Cup. There's nobody got to tell me that he's not an elite manager. I think that Simon Jordan thinks he's an elite manager, but he's on a programme where you have to create debate, and I think that's what all he's doing. I think it's to get folk watching, get folk phoning in. Brendan Rodgers is absolutely an elite manager. It's not even up for discussion.
Superb. And Stephen, I'll give the final word to yourself on it. Fellow Irishman, you glad to you did you feel he ran the show on Saturday?
He ran the show, and by the way, see that security guard? He's a smack in the mouth. See how rough he was with that wee kid? He proper speared him. Like, what's the point in that? I mean, Rodgers, I know people are saying Rodgers is trying his best to get the fans on side, but look, any human being saying that would have stepped in. So I mean, he's only a wee kid wanting to meet his heroes, and that Rodgers done the right thing in my opinion. And like you said, team selection and game management all spot on. Look, see Simon Jordan. He's as much affect to me as a morning fart. It blows on by and I don't give a fuck after it. Do you know what I mean? He's an absolute toss pot. And I agree with most of the people in the comments. And look, I get that he creates debate and that, and he has his wee talk show or whatever it is, and it's quite good. I watch the clips and all sometimes, and he talks to people, and that fair enough. But Brendan Rodgers for us was the best choice after Postecoglou. Enzo Maresca, fair enough, has went to Leicester. I think he's unbeaten. He's doing quite well, but he hasn't proved himself, and I think we all would have fucking went mental if someone like him came in after Postecoglou, because there wasn't a time for another project. We needed a manager to take us forward again. And the way I look at it, Rodgers, like you said, Swansea brung them up. Scott Sinclair, top goal scorer, 25 goals plus, went to Liverpool. And look, people have to realise this as well. Liverpool had a transfer committee that really dealt Rodgers a bad hand at points. They were bringing in players left, right, and centre, and this was a lot that we spoke about years ago when he was there, and all these transfer committees. I think they were one of the first clubs to involve, and I think he didn't get the players he wanted and things like that. But he developed Luis Suarez, Raheem Sterling, Daniel Sturridge to a lesser degree. He still has Steven Gerrard and players like that. And unfortunately, from a slip, he didn't win the league. That's fair enough. He moves on. He takes a year out, comes to us, wins all the trophies available to him. Then he goes to Leicester. By the way, Ross, you forgot the semi-final as well that he took him to in Europe, Conference League. So come on. He's like, these are the same people that try and tell us that Michael Beale is slightly behind Rodgers as a manager. Michael Beale has done fuck all in football management. Absolutely fuck all. You can tell it annoys me, but he gets a welcome to Scotland like Pep Guardiola has took over Rangers and they're going to win everything in front of them. He gets talked about like he's the best coach that's ever walked the face of earth. His coaching methods are insane. Your man Sterling, who signed for Rangers, said he's a tactical genius. No, he's not. He's a mess. And I'll tell you another thing. See that their Motherwell game that they won, their own fans booed them after a victory. He was that bad. He was that bad. The team were that bad. Motherwell should have won it. I watched most of the game. They missed bag loads of chances. But back to Rodgers. In Scotland, he's the best we could attract. And look, we all know the past. And look, don't get me wrong. We're going to be speaking about it every time we drop a point or we lose. Supporters are going to give him backlash. I'm sure he knows that's going to happen. And he wouldn't have come back if he wasn't comfortable with it, right? At the end of the day, he's at Celtic. And as he said to all of us, we'll see him in May with a league title, hopefully in the bag.
Ah, brilliant. Superb, Stephen.
By
What
the
a
way,
way to round it off. No,
sorry,
on you go,
Anthony,
Ross.
can I just add to that? Off the back of Leicester, right, he obviously loses his job. He wasn't back that final season for me, and Leicester he was on a high to nothing with Leicester. But off the back of that, the Tottenham job became available. Now, Ange Postecoglou, I think everybody has said that he's an elite manager. He got the job, right? If Postecoglou hadn't been offered it and he stayed at Celtic, and Brendan Rodgers went to Tottenham, there wouldn't have been a raised eyebrow in the country. Nobody would have batted an eyelid because Brendan Rodgers could go and get that Tottenham job and do a fantastic job and win something with Tottenham. See, even he's at Celtic now, and I don't want him to go. But if he was still, I don't think it would happen because he's at Celtic. But if he was still managing, plying his trade down south, and Ten Hag lost his job, and Man United went in for Brendan Rodgers, I wouldn't bat an eyelid. I think he could go there and do a job. That's how good I believe he is.
Yeah, I think he's top drawn, mate. I just think everyone about him at the minute is just he's getting that groove back, as we say, and the team are just coming along nicely. And fingers crossed. Obviously, I'll leave it up to you guys to chat about it on Friday night, but hopefully the good form continues on Saturday away to Motherwell. But in terms of tonight, I think that's pretty much Livingston covered. You've enjoyed that one?
Brilliant, mate. Brilliant.
I enjoyed that. Good to get back on. I think it's about 3 weeks I've been on, so apologies if I went on a few rants.
3 weeks in both time zones, son. But no,
happy to be back, y'all.
And Stephen as well. Yep, absolutely. Great to be on with you tonight. And thanks again for everyone for watching. If you have enjoyed it and you haven't subscribed yet, by all means, just hit the subscription option and hit that wee bell next to it as well, because then that will notify you anytime we go live. Because it's not just Mondays and Fridays. Sometimes we do the odd spin-off, etc. as well. Hopefully try and get one of the European ones done pretty soon as well, because I know I've got 5 Champions League rewind shows left to do.
Yes, Anthony. Let's go, boy.
That's that. I'm a wee bit behind schedule with it.
Fuck's sake, we'll be out soon. We need them done.
Let's say that, boy.
Superb. And but that's it for me as well, guys. And I'll just hand you over to Stephen for the usual farewell, and we'll see you next time on Friday night at 8 o'clock. Cheers.
As Anthony well summed up the podcast. Back Friday night, 8 o'clock, looking ahead to the Motherwell game, which will be a tough game, but we'll have a good chat, maybe a beer or two. Until then, stay well and keep safe. Hail, hail.